Hello, this is Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Bregman from the Jewish Executive Learning Network and BregmanSuccess.com. I want to share with you an idea in this week's Parsha, this week's Torah portion, which is called Parshas Vayeishev in the book of Genesis, which I think will be a broad-ranging, far-applying idea that you could definitely apply in many aspects of your life. I'll share it over with you as it's found in the Parsha, give you a few different perspectives on it, and we'll call it a Torah insight. How about that? So it says in this week's Torah portion, chapter 39, verse 10, it's talking about the situation when Joseph was sold to be a slave, a servant, to a person named Potiphar, and Potiphar's wife, Torah calls her Eshes Potiphar, the wife of Potiphar, kept trying to make trouble for him and seduce him. And the pasuk, the verse says, just as she coaxed Yosef day after day, so he would not listen to her. So she would coax him and try to get him to do things he wasn't supposed to do day after day, but he would not listen to her. So that's what the verse tells us. So Yosef, in short, is refusing over here I'm tongue-tied this week. The advances of Eshes Potiphar, day after day. He's saying no to her. That's what the verse is saying. And because this pasuk is speaking in short about Joseph saying no, I want to just share with you some ideas on the concept of saying no. No to temptation and no in broader application in life. You know, sometimes Hashem, God, tells us exactly what we should be saying no to, and that makes it easier because sometimes in life you don't know what's right or what's wrong. If God put in the Torah what we're supposed to avoid and not do, well, that makes it easy. But that being said, it's important also to understand from the Torah perspective that it's our ability to say no which actually makes us human. I speak about this in my Torah commentary called Short and Sweet on the Parsha in this week's Torah portion. There's a verse in the book of Ecclesiastes, that's in English they call it Ecclesiastes, written by King Solomon. In chapter 3, verse 19, over there in the book of Ecclesiastes, there's a verse that King Solomon says, he says, the advantage of a human being, over beast, meaning over an animal, is the word ayin. It says the advantage of man over beast is, then he used the Hebrew word ayin. Now, the word is usually translated by many commentaries to mean nothing. And in that context, he's saying there's no real advantage, it sounds like he's saying, between being a person and an animal. But commentaries such as like Hadrash V'Ha'iyun and others translate the word ayin to mean no. Ayin doesn't have to mean nothing, it can mean no. In other words, the advantage of a person over an animal is the ability to say no, sometimes to resist our lusts, our urges, and to say no to them and to other people who want us to go in the wrong direction. And that's really what separates a human being and a Jew from a gorilla or a lion or whatever else. We're not on autopilot, governed completely by whatever impulse we have. Human being has to know how to say no. And certainly to things that God told us clearly stay away from. It's also interesting that in the Midrash, in the Yalkut Shemaini, and I bring the exact source if you want to know the exact citation, send me an email, or you can look it up in Short and Sweet on the Parsha on page 94. But it says in the Midrash, in Yalkut Shemaini, that when a person holds back from doing something that's wrong or immoral, that person is going to actually be rewarded and get schar, in Hebrew that means reward, for their deed, in the same way as if the person had done a positive, affirmative, good deed or act. So it's not just, you avoid messing up and getting a sin when you say no to something you should be saying no to. You also simultaneously receive a reward, you receive schar. So up to now, I've been speaking about the concept of saying no within the context of what God has told us what He wants us to do and not. Number one. Number two, I was explaining that in the context of Yosef. That was my springboard to it. Number three, I was explaining that the Torah Hashkafa, based on commentaries like Hadrash V'Ha'iyun and others, is that that's really what separates us from being an animal, because we're not just governed by our lusts and impulses and urges. And number four, I've said so far that we receive affirmative reward, schar, as though we had done an actual good deed, when we refrain. Okay, so ad kan means like up to here. That's from certainly very clearly from the spiritual perspective, reward, punishment. And I wanted to share over with you a little bit more ideas that I have in my mind in terms of saying no in life. You know, the word yes is cheap. It's very easy. Say yes. Can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do me a favor? Can you give me a ride? Yes, yes, yes. It's very easy to say yes. And it makes us feel good. We sound like nice people. But you know what? Wise people, successful people know you can't say yes to everything. And the word no is a very important part of the arsenal of a high achiever, not just spiritually, but in every facet of life as well. I would suggest to you that to say no in certain ways is more important than learning how to say yes. Or I'll phrase it like this. When I look at my days, in a good quality day, I see that I have said no to a bunch of people or things or opportunities at least as much as I said yes, at least as much. And on a really good day, I probably said no even more. Because saying no to an opportunity or to do something, it doesn't mean you think it's a zero. It just might mean it's not the highest return on the investment of your time at that time. It could be an opportunity that doesn't make sense for you to pursue in December. It could make sense in January or February. That's all it means, you know. You know, many people ask me, like, what should I be doing in order to become more successful? And that's definitely a great question. But I think you should also ask yourself, what do I need to stop doing? That's a very good question. You should ask yourself, what do I need to stop doing? People are basically asking me, what do I need to do? In other words, what do I need to say yes to in my life? How about we talk about what do you need to say no to? What people? What relationships? What opportunities do you have to say no to? Think about it. It's important to do. On the path to success, I think that for each thing you should do and have on your do list, I think you should have a don't do list and a stop doing list also. I think you have to learn to say no to that also. There's two different parts, I think, to saying no. This is what's all in my head. One part of saying no is when you don't care. I want you to learn how to not care so much when people say no to you, but that's not the subject of this little clip. But it's important to learn how to say no to others and the requests and opportunities that they offer you. And like I'm trying to tell you, again, I'll phrase it like this. It's not always a question of what's a good investment of time versus a poor investment of time. Imagine a college kid. Good investment of time? Study. Say yes to that. Say no to drugs and alcohol and a party the night before an exam. It's not always that clear. Sometimes we have to select between good opportunities and slightly better opportunities. I know it could be hard, but you can't just accept any opportunity and everything that comes your way in life. It has to be something that's going to legitimately move the needle in your life and advance you to where you want to be. I sometimes think of life kind of like an all-you-can-eat buffet. If you go to one, certainly if you're Jewish, you appreciate a good meal where you can fill your tummy with good kosher food. In theory, at an all-you-can-eat buffet, you can eat everything, and it's already paid for. It's not bad, but it's not going to work because you only have one stomach, so you got to make choices. You have to decide what's going to be the most. Sushi, that's your thing? Enjoy it. Salad, what are you going to fill up on that at the buffet for? It's like when you go to a wedding or something else, So I think that this is what life is like. In theory, you could do almost everything, but if you say yes to everything, it's not going to work. You have 1 day, 1 year, 1 week. How are you going to do it? I've been offered opportunities in my career, whether it be the rabbi of a shul or to speak over here and do this and that, and there were fantastic opportunities, but I had to say no because there were bigger, better, juicier opportunities that I had to say yes to. So I'm trying to say over here that the art of saying no, it's not just to people who want to get you to sin or the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, things that God told you explicitly to stay away from, even amongst things that seem kosher and valid and that would further God's agenda in this world. You have to learn how to say no to many of those things too, even good opportunities. And that's really what I'm trying to suggest to you. A lot of business strategists sometimes speak about a concept that they call the undisciplined pursuit of more, like just more everything. I just want more of everything. But before you become tactical and active and taking action and doing things, then you need to be strategic. That's really the concept. You can't just pursue more. You have to make sure that it makes sense, I do this with my strategy for emails and texts. I make sure that if I send an email, I want to make sure it matters, because each time I send an email, it invites a response back to my inbox, and that's more clutter. I already get 500 to 800 communications coming my way from the public a day. If I'm going to initiate one, it better matter to me. You know what I mean? And this is really what I'm saying, that before you take on anything new, ask yourself also this one last question. I'm just sharing with you ideas. I'm already over 10 minutes, but just leave you with this. Before you agree to take on anything new in your life, I want you to think about this, about saying no. What are you now going to not do because you're saying yes to this? Okay? So when my son says to me, Abba, can we learn Mishnah? I say yes. He says, can we learn Gemara? Yes. Can we do this? Yes. So I said to him, well, what are we not going to do? He says, what do you mean? Let's do everything. So there are times, you can't do that. If I would say yes to everything that everybody asks of me, I'd have no time for my family, no time for my wife, no time for my kids, no time for my Torah study. Some of these people say to me, how come I asked you to learn with me, but you said no, you can't? I said, why? Because I was writing a book, because I was doing videos, because I was with my kids, because I was in shul, I was with my family. Because, every time you're going to say yes to A, B, or C, realize you're going to probably have to chop out D, E, F. You're going to have to get rid of something, because you cannot do everything. Only Hashem is truly infinite. So become strategic in life with the word no. Become comfortable with it. No is not an insult. When you offer it to a person, just realize that no sometimes means that something is not the highest, most optimal use of the time that you have available to you right now. It's not the most highest, best, most optimal use, but it's not an insult. And when it comes to things that God told us to say no, we should all be very, very fluent in having that flow off our tongues. Anyway, this is some hashkafa, some concept for you. I hope you found it to be valuable. This is Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Bregman from the Jewish Executive Learning Network and BregmanSuccess.com. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can continue to share with you beautiful ideas, and have